started shortly. Oh, that was really good. You guys are very obedient. Got quiet. Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica, or Jessie to the family, most people here. I'm Dao's stepdaughter, and on behalf of my family and me, I just want to thank you. Julian, I've started. He gets a pass today. Anyway, like I was saying, on behalf of my family and me, thank you so much for joining us here today as we honor and remember Dao, a beloved son, husband, father, grandfather, brother, and friend. I know that some of you have come from far, flying in from across the country, waking up early to drive down from Santa Barbara, Ventura, waiting for people to arrive as we started late. We just really appreciate it. On behalf of my family and me, we're just touched and encouraged to have your support here today. Dao, or Judao as I called him, was like a second father to me. So it's my pleasure to be up here and kick things off today. He and my mom married 18 years ago when I was a freshman in high school. So he's been a fixture in my life for quite some time. The thing I appreciate the most about Judao was, even though when my parents married, my dad was still alive at the time, Judao was always very careful to be respectful of that relationship in my life. He never made me call him dad or forced intimacy or anything like that. He allowed me to decide what our stepdaughter-stepfather relationship was going to be like. But nevertheless, he took me to school, he gave me advice, he helped me with my homework, he taught me to drive, he taught me how to change a flat tire, he designed my prom dress and later one of my wedding gowns, and he helped me move from apartment to apartment, whether here in California or in New York. He was a steady presence in my life, and he helped walk alongside me as I grew from a teenage girl to a young adult to now a mother. I'm grateful to have known him. When I was in the 10th grade, I was having trouble writing an essay for English class. And I remember I was staying up late and I was particularly stuck on writing the introduction to this paper. And Dao, as many of you know, is a pretty gifted writer, and he decided to help me out. And he ended up writing me an intro that was so good it ended up getting me an A on the paper. I never told my teacher. But I actually still remember the opening line. It goes like this. It says, "Much as the river's edge is shaped by the water that flows through it, so are we shaped by those who come in and out of our lives." And these words reflect why we're here today. So many of us have been affected by Dao's presence in our life, deeply, for the better. And so we gather here today to share stories and remember him. For the next hour or so, we will hear from a select few friends and family who will share their own memories of who Dao was, and my hope is that in hearing from a few representatives from different parts of his life, that we will be able to have a collective sense of who he was, the type of man he was, the type of impact he left after leaving here. My hope, and I know Dao's hope as well as he was talking to us about planning the service, was that we would be able to grieve, but that we wouldn't despair, that we would miss him, but that we would also celebrate who he was and how he shaped each and every one of our lives. And again, thank you for coming. And we're going to start off by having Dao's nephew, Nam, come up, and he's going to share just a brief biography of Dao's life. This is also Dao's walking stick. Some of us might be holding it as we're talking in memory of him.
Duong Minh Doan was born in 1954 in Hanoi, Vietnam, to Duong Ma and Duong Mo-Lan, third of 6 children. He grew up in Saigon, attended Marie Curie High School, and graduated in 1972 and went to study architecture in Liège, Belgium, for 3 years. In 1975, he moved to California and obtained a degree in architecture from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. He married Hao Le, and in 1977, his 2 sons, Julian and Adrian LeMinh were born in 1987 and 1991. In 1989, he became a partner at Mainstreet Architects in Ventura, where he worked for 27 years. Thank you. After his first marriage ended, he met Rosie Tuyet-Ngoc in 1999. They married in the year 2000 and lived in Thousand Oaks. In 2012, at the age of 58, he accomplished a decades-long goal of getting a graduate degree, receiving his master's in urban planning from UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs. At the age of 60, he ran and completed his first marathon in LA. In April of 2016, Doan was diagnosed with glioblastoma multiforme, or GBM, a grade 4 terminal brain cancer. In 23 months, he endured 4 surgeries, 2 infections, 2 clinical trials, 2 rounds of radiation, and 5 chemo treatments, and other various alternative treatments. On March of this year, he and his family decided to stop treatment in an attempt to maintain some quality of life in Dao's last months. Unfortunately, after suffering multiple grand mal seizures, Dao began hospice care on March 24th. In his last week of life, he was surrounded by family and friends. He got to see all 5 of his siblings, including a sister from Montreal and his brother who flew in from Belgium. Dao passed away peacefully on April 3rd. He was surrounded by his wife, 2 sons, sister, and mother as he took his last breath. Throughout his life, Dao finished whatever goal he set out to accomplish, patiently working and fighting no matter how long the journey took. Even though he ultimately lost his battle to GBM, he achieved his final goal of finishing his life surrounded by family, cherishing every moment and maintaining a sense of peace until the very end. We'll take it off.
Let me hold it a little bit for some courage, because I'm nervous. As you may or may not know, I'm the youngest sister in the family. I'm the oops of the family. Dao and I have many similarities. He was born the year of the snake, and so was I 12 years later. The following are some thoughts and reflection that Sun, Dao's older brother, and myself, Dao's younger sister, put together about Dao and his journey. It is also reflecting the thoughts and rest of the siblings. Dear Dao, to the family, friends, and all who knows you, you are a person with many talents. You were a gifted artist and architect, a talented poet. You did everything with passion and got the appreciation and praises from others. You also had compassion, often thought of and tried to help others. Obstacles and challenges usually did not faze you, for you are the one of the most persistent, positive, and patient person. Not to mention, you also possessed a big sense of humor and many romantic traits. And my sister-in-law can be can tell you about it. With all the above, I asked myself, who are you really? You got sick 2 years ago. From what you told us, in spite of the rigorous treatments, you were doing very well. You never felt so good and serene, both physically and mentally, that first year. Were you talented, or were you just taking everything with a light heart? The following year, you were not doing as well. Your health deteriorated. But you did not give up and did not complain about it. Again, were you just talented, or were you very persistent? Right before passing, you chose not to use the feeding tube. You were resting in bed with peaceful expression, endured the pain and hunger without showing any sign of it. Your wife, Tuyet-Ngoc, believed that you were probably waiting to wish her a happy birthday before saying your final goodbye. Turned out to be true. You took your last breath on the morning of her birthday. Was that a gift from you? The day Master Doan come to pray and chant for you, the Master told us that he felt you left with peace, but with one small concern that you will not be here for your mom's final moment on earth. Our mom became a Buddhist nun shortly before Doan passed away. So we feel that, you know what? You were so smart and you were blessed because you wait until the moment to take your final breath. And so now you have one more religious figure in your life to pray for you and to support your spirit. So to all of us sibling, family, you were all the above, talented, gifted, compassionate, loving, positive, inspiring. We're now missing a big piece of our family, a big part of family, physically gone, but your spirit and your inspiration will stay with us for a long, long time. And I hope that it will transcend down to the next generation in the family, that the next generation will all continue your legacy and your love for family and for the community and for this earth. Sorry.
Thank you all for coming. I'm Adrian. I'm one of Dao's favorite sons. He loved that joke. Julian's shaking his head. So it's quite the intro growing up. I was at home way too often, and many of you know I was overly attached to my dad. Some people told me that they couldn't wait to get away from home. Some people needed to be a plane flight away from their parents in order to maintain their sanity. But I spent every summer in college back at home. Even once I was out and on my own, I was routinely home on the weekends. I loved being at home. Home was Game of Thrones on Sunday with Dad and Rosie, working out together at the YMCA, walking the dog Lucy, getting called to dinner repeatedly while I worked on my car in the garage. In the almost 5 years since graduating college and moving out, I've lived in 5 different apartments in 2 different states, but nothing ever replaced home. Dao never pressured any of his children down a particular career path. He made it clear that he'd be happy as long as we were happy and could take care of ourselves. Somehow I ended up attending the same exact university that he did, although with a different major. I like to imagine him walking around the Cal Poly campus in the 80s. It wasn't too difficult to visualize given the fact that most people say I'm a carbon copy of him. Dad was passionate and devoted to architecture and urban planning, and I like to think that his commitment to his work was inherited by his children. By the time I received an offer for a dream job in Colorado, we had already known for 6 months that my father had GBM. Moving far away when I knew GBM had a typical prognosis of around 2 years was one of the hardest decisions I made in my life. And despite him giving me his blessing no less than 3 times separately, I know I'll always have some level of guilt. But Dad was always a big supporter of new experiences, moving to a new state, backpacking in Europe and Vietnam, even riding a motorcycle. When others expressed doubt, Dad believed I could finish a fairly extensive car project in his garage. Almost 9 years later, I'm still driving that same car. But he still has me beat with his drafting table that he shipped over from Belgium in the 70s. But most importantly of all, he's fully supported me in my #1 passion, which is running. He's extremely proud. His friends would come over and they'd ask me, "Oh, are you the one that ran the marathon?" And I'd grin and look over at my dad, wondering how much he bragged about me. In 2015, my dad decided to run the LA Marathon after watching me run 2 marathons myself. I was excited to be his coach, but I knew I'd have an issue with the athlete heeding the advice from the coach when Dao himself had created the coach. I had a strict training regime that I used to train for my marathons. I eased back on the regime a bit, knowing that my dad wasn't planning to run the race competitively, and just wanted to finish. I told him that he needed to work his way up to being able to run 18 miles in a single day. He ignored all my advice and didn't even run 18 miles combined in 1 week. It'll be fine, he said. I chastised him for weeks for being stubborn and not training, but he finished that damn race at the age of 60. I've never been more proud of in my life. Dao was stubborn, and I think I picked it up from him. One night after a small party, I took over dish duty, which was his favorite task, and managed to fully pack the dishwasher, leaving only one large bowl left. I was about to start washing it by hand when he swooped in. I insisted it was filled to the max, but he unloaded the entire dishwasher and put everything back in, including the large bowl. He was right again. Sometimes Dao was stubbornly indecisive. One day I was heating up some Vietnamese pastries, and I asked, "Hey Dad, you don't like these pastries, right? I'm gonna heat up a couple of them for me and Rosie." He turned to me and said, "It's not that I don't like them. It's just that I've never had one that I've enjoyed." Dad, I told him, "Dad, I think if in 4 decades you haven't enjoyed a single one, we can safely say that you don't like them." And he looked at me and said, "I don't think that's true." And I said, "Okay, well, do you want one or not?" And he said, "No." I'm gonna miss that stubbornness. Unfortunately, I think I picked up the indecisiveness from him. But in my dad's final weeks, I read to him from one of our mutual favorite books, Le Petit Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I'd like to read you a quote from that book that we plastered on a bright pink poster when he returned home from his first brain surgery. "Voici mon secret. Il est très simple. On ne voit bien qu'avec le cœur. L'essentiel est invisible pour les yeux." Here's my secret, and it's very simple. We can only truly see with our heart. The essential is invisible to our eyes. Dao may have left us physically, but his love, energy, and spirit remain in our hearts. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm not quite sure I deserve to be up here, and I frankly feel a little bit cheated. I was fairly certain Dao was going to live to be 90, and that he would be giving humorous little quips at my memorial, and telling things that no one should know. But here we are. Dao was an extraordinary man, an artist, an architect, a visionary, a philosopher, a passionate man with a thirst for life, for knowledge and beauty and love. He found all of these things in his life, and he touched so many lives along the way. Though we have all had 2 years to come to grips with the idea of his loss, I can tell you that I had no idea, no understanding of how much I would struggle with the news until the day of his peaceful passing came. In true form, with courage and insight, Dao showed all of us the real meaning of grace. And gratitude to you, Rosie, for your unending love and care and steward of him through that journey. I first met Dao and his beautiful wife, Hao, while we were studying architecture at Cal Poly 40-some years ago. There was a knock at my door, my apartment, and Dao stood there holding a vacuum cleaner. And he was leaving town, and he wanted to make sure that that vacuum cleaner got back to the manager before he did. I didn't know at the time that this would be the beginning of a 40-year friendship, with all the ups and the downs that would come with that. We discovered that we shared a passion for helping to make the world a better place, and I discovered fish sauce. For which Hao so graciously tolerated my mooching, as they only lived 2 apartments down, and I didn't cook very well. We discovered, I was 4 years younger than Dao, and I was in awe of them both. They had escaped a beautiful but war-torn country and had found their way to the middle American town of San Luis. And Dow excelled. Soon he was correcting my grammar and helping me survive the perils of structural engineering classes. And I remember hanging on for dear life on the back of his moped as he tooled through the Cal Poly campus like it was downtown Saigon. Although we were polar opposites, I was an open book of emotion and often anxious, while Dow was constant, thoughtful, and steady. We talked of one day opening a firm together, just musings, daydreams, on our way to class, a couple of college kids wondering what the future might bring. And yet 12 years later, in 1989, Dow joined our small firm, and we leveled up. He and Hal moved their family to Ventura County, and our families grew close. My wife, Diana, and Hal became good friends. Our children played together, and we shared in the wonders and challenges of raising children. Dow brought with him extraordinary energy and vision to our firm. Our work began to have real impact on the communities we touched. And in 1994, we were there to help rebuild the city of Fillmore after the wake of the devastating Northridge earthquake. 40% of the downtown came down in ruins. And we had been working for 2 years with the city, creating a plan for their downtown. We didn't know that it was the plan to rebuild. We thought it was a 20-year wish list. How amazing that Dow, this sojourner from a faraway land, could become the favored son of a small American town and the architect of their most cherished building, the Fillmore City Hall. Architecture is a most challenging profession, subject to late night meetings, hours of overtime, and drawings that simply must get done. And of course, the whims of economic flux. Our clients could be gracious and sometimes near tyrannical. None of them are in the room, right? Dow had a way of working with most anyone. Steady, thoughtful, constant. And it might be at times that this actually made for him certain challenges. Dow could not always understand how people might react emotionally, and I know I often bewildered and frustrated him. And he mentored our staff by throwing them into a pond of alligators and then leaving for a meeting. And he simply said, they will learn to swim. He said this with deep assurance. One day he came to us, his partners, and announced that he had something very important to tell us in 2 weeks. What? 2 weeks. Dow simply couldn't understand that this might have an effect on us of emotional discord. For 2 weeks we puzzled and fretted and wondered what on earth was going on. At last he gathered us together and he told us that he and Hal were going to divorce. This is the only time I ever saw Dow cry. And we cried with him. He had made a promise to Hal not to share this news until the families had been told. Dow, I'm family, come on, you know. He stuck to it. I knew that he loved Hal. There were paintings and poems and stories shared, and they had these two amazing, beautiful, talented boys, Julian and Adrian. But life must take its course, and both Hal and Dow moved through the hurt with as much grace as I have ever witnessed. And life went on, and work went on, and a few years passed. And then Dow started acting kind of weird. He became very interested in flying back east. And soon, we discovered that he had met someone. And I remember him telling me that he had seen her from across a room, and he could not take her eyes off of her. When Rosie and Dow were married, Dow's family grew to include Rosie's children, Thomas and Jessica. And Dow seemed to find his center again. He immersed himself in his passions of art and design and community planning. And Dow became a driving force behind the Ventura County Civic Alliance, a movement to lead Ventura County towards a sustainable future. He continued to design some of the region's most notable buildings, beautiful buildings, and he earned the love and respect of people across all boundaries of the community, including those on city councils and those working to end homelessness and create affordable housing and other causes of social justice. Dow completed his master's degree in urban planning from UCLA and was beginning to find the measure of a new chapter when, during a lunch together, he told me that he was waking in the night with painful headaches. Though I told him I was certainly concerned, Dow was strong and healthy, as one could be in his early 60s. He was running marathons, for God's sakes. He was swimming and playing badminton. A week later, he shared the news of devastating illness with little chance of survival. But again, Dow showed all of us true courage and what it means to cherish life. With Rosie and his family by his side every step of the way, Dow fought the good fight and continued to share his love, his wisdom, and even his humor until the end, making sure that the boys built a small yet structurally worthy pier in his pond for the ants. I bring to you greetings and heartfelt condolences and gratitude and wishes of love from hundreds, maybe 1,000 or more, of Dow's good colleagues and friends from Ventura County. His mark there will be a lasting legacy of passion and a future of hope, with love and honor for his Downess. Thank you.
Dear parents, dear relatives, and dear friends of our beloved Dan Doan. A couple of months ago, Dow and I, we did have a very, very special private moment together at his house up here in the Thousand Oaks. We was there together, and Rosalyn was away for her work. He shared with me his only Danish pastry, and after a couple of coffee, we went to have a walk with his family dog at the trail in his backyard. That is after his first operation, and I never see him so bright, so cheerful a person for more than a century that we have been together. Back in 1965, I guess, we are a bunch of boys, teenagers, from the same school, Jesuit American, that a lot of you has been with us together. And we really blessed to have Dow's mother, who actually allowed us to stay at her place countless nights, and her sister too as well. She treated us like a boyish teenager, which do not want to grow up at all. So I believe that this chance that we have together is really an important step to our life. A message that he wants to bring to us all here is a beautiful thought process. It's what you need. And that has been the germ of what we build up from that day. Yes, we talk about a lot of things. We touch about our friends, the group that we had together, about dozens of boys. I have to name them because I represent them. Lê Thức Hiệp, Ngô Văn Lộc, Nguyễn Huy Long, Mã Quang Hùng, Duy Tiến, Duy Bùi Xuân, and I guess that I hope that I don't miss any word, but and of course our friend Tuyet-Ngoc. Let's be together. We spent countless nights and days. Your mom didn't know that we didn't sleep at all. The reason is because we kind of brainstorming about what life is about, what the future is reserving to us. We don't know. It's a boundary that we never see, in each of us. But we come to ideas around what the Buddhist code is about. And that is, you are shaped by your thought. You are what you think. The mind is pure. If the mind is pure, joy follows you and never leave you. That's beautiful Buddha quote that we actually benefit from we as a teenager growing up. And yes, also one phrase from Pham that we believe has shaped us to become what we are today. Our group, we're all MDs, architect, engineer, and successful businessmen. And that is not a coincidence, because we have come up to terms with one sentence from Pham, the famous philosophy. Sois toi-même, sans faiblesse, énergiquement jusqu'au bout. Be yourself, leave your weakness behind. Illogically, reach out for your goal. That is what we use as guideline to our life. And that thought process is so beautiful that I have to share with you today. What we hear from him is a lot of things that you already hear from Julian, Adrian, and Jessica. His beautiful mind is not just about himself, about the way of carrying life, but really choose the envelope, social envelope that we live. And even you will not exist without society will not exist without individuals. So what he tried to pass on to us as legacy is what we are, is we have to believe always in the way we think. In Vietnamese we always say khi mà mình nghĩ tích cực đến 95% thì chỉ có 5% là tiêu cực mà thôi. Do đó mình lúc nào mình nên nghĩ tích cực và tiêu cực sẽ không còn nữa. Cái khẩu nghiệp của mình cũng sẽ không còn nữa. That is what he said to us, and I really like it. He also mentioned one phrase I like. A candle cannot be blown without a fire. A life is meaningless if you don't have a spirit for life. And that light candle, he lighted up thousands of our life, and a lot of you, including the eulogy I have in hands, mentioned about that. So, to wrap up, what I have from him is one thing. You never actually pass away. You just passing through to better place. And you actually, while you are surfing through this life, you left us a legacy of a beautiful mindset, which is, I'm pretty sure that Julian, Adrian, Jessica, and Luong has inherited. And that is the beautiful things I had to share with you today. Thank you.
Hi everyone, Julian, Dao's other favorite son. Stupid joke. There's so many of you here. Thank you for coming to share memories of Dao with us. I'll be honest, my memory's a little hazy considering everything that's happened in the past couple years. I think it'll take some time to unpack everything from the time before. But what I'll always remember is his character. He's calm yet strong, just like his mother and his father. Just super easygoing. As a dad, he coined the phrase laissez-faire parenting. He, actually the day before he was diagnosed, he was giving us a lecture on parenting and boasted about how he thinks you only have the first 3 to 4 years to shape a child. And after that, it's mostly out of your control. And he said he gave us choices on whether we could be good boys or bad boys. So as a child, I would climb on the outside of the second-story banister without getting grounded. When I started actual climbing, he wouldn't give me any gaff about wearing a helmet. And even when I became a teenager, he told me off topic during dinner once, you know, if you ended up being gay, I'd be okay with that. And then in college, when I realized I wanted to study the arts and told him I wanted to be a film director and a film editor, there was no question, there was no judgment from him. The most important thing for him is that we were happy. It didn't matter to him that we succeeded financially or commercially or anything else, just that we liked what we did. And I think that's the greatest gift that Dad gave us. He never judged us. He may have disagreed a few times with some of the things we did, but never judgment. On my 22nd birthday, I was supremely hungover and was having muscular contractures from dehydration, and I was crying, and I told my roommate to call my dad. And he drove over with Gatorade and bananas. And the only thing he said was, well, that'll teach you. And it didn't. I only remember one time when he lost his temper at me, and it was in high school. I was 16 and I really wanted to drive a car, and I kept pressing him to let me get my license, and I just kept pressing and pressing and pressing. And one night, I went too far. He was washing the dishes, again, his favorite activity. And this is more surprising knowing how precious he is with his dishes. He slammed the dish into the sink and started screaming his head off at me. And to my memory, that's the only time I've ever seen him scream. But I don't know if he's ever gotten mad at me besides that time. I think that's what's funny to me about memory is like this automated editing. It's like our body sorting and sifting the moments in our lives, choosing the story beats, and constructing narratives. In editing, there's a saying that a film is never finished, it's only taken away from you. You always get the feeling that when that happens, there's like more you could have done, more you could have said, other things you could have done differently. But you also get the feeling of pride and accomplishment and relief. I wasn't ready to stop that with Dad. There was still countless things I wanted to do with him, but more than anything, I would just give anything to have another dinner conversation with him. That kind of elementary school philosophizing was my favorite thing to do with Dad. Just sit at the dinner table 45 minutes after we cleared the table of the dishes and just talk about life. And he loved doing it. I was actually there the day that he was diagnosed on April 25th. I took him to the doctor, and the doctor told him that he had a brain tumor. And to me, I was like in shock. This is like this movie scene. This doesn't happen in real life. And Dad just went, yeah, I kind of sense that maybe this is my time to go. You know, when we just have to accept the randomness of life. So he just sat there and lectured his own doctor while I'm sitting there in shock. It's definitely painful to accept that Dad's story is over, but I'm also proud of him in living a full and amazing life. Watching him get his master's at UCLA, running a full marathon, and then finally his battle against cancer. Watching him conquer all of those things gave me an overwhelming sense of pride that I didn't think a son could have. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming. I guess you all know I'm Rosie. I'm his second wife, but his last wife, I hope. I'm sorry, I didn't write any speech the last few days. The last 2 days we had funeral service for Dao. Buddhist funeral, and I was too busy bowing to him. And the whole time I was bowing to him, I kept thinking, darn, I mean, when I said my vow to you, I vow to obey you, to stick with you through thick and thin, in sickness and in health. I never said I would bow to you this many times. But then I look at his face, he's smiling, and from my mother-in-law, who is very well-versed in the Buddhist tradition, she said, all this is going to help him go on, move on faster to a better life. And I love him so much. As hard as it is to separate from him, I do want him to move on and have a happier life. I did tell him before he passed that if you ever find any good shopping over there, you come back and tell me. And he actually nodded. He couldn't say much at the time. He squeezed my hand and he said, I will. And so many of you who have known Dao probably know that he's very cool. He would act very detached, practical, Teflon. But you probably don't know that he's actually very sentimental. He has very strong emotional attachment, especially to his possessions. And he has clothes that he owned since his college day, not just here from Belgium, from 30, 40 years ago, that he kept in the closet. And we moved from one house to another, he wouldn't give them away. And 30-some years later, he would pull them out, and it's in fashion again. So he would add a few buttons here and there, put on his design touch, and he would wear it again. And he does look very good. So, and another thing is his vacuum cleaner. Up till this day, we're still using, and actually it's very powerful, and it sucks up all the dog's hair and all the trash that in our house. But I would tell you, the one thing that Dao is most attached to is the set of washer and dryer that he has owned. I don't know, Dao, if he had bought this back then or right before we met. It just was there before my time. And it would break every now and then, and he would make Adrian help him fix it. And he found this hardware store, appliance store in Thousand Oaks, where they sell every single part you can think of for any appliance. And he was so excited. He came home and he said, I found this guy, this hardware guy. He's a hardware guru of Thousand Oaks. And he has everything I need to fix my dryer, my washer and dryer. So he would fix it again and again and again, because he said, why would you throw away a good piece of appliance? This made the hardware guru from Thousand Oaks said that the Maytag flour, just the Maytag washer and dryer are the best, and you cannot find any better ones these days. So might as well fix it, and he doesn't want to litter the environment with a good set of appliances. So the day that we moved to Huntington Beach last year, and weeks before that, I had told him, I don't want to move those washers. And, actually, I have to tell you, he had written a very long email to us in the family for his last wish, where he would bequeath all his artwork and possession to various members of the family. And I read that, and I immediately told him, you better not bequeath those washer and dryer to me. I say, okay, I leave it to Adrian then. So anyway, he actually agreed that we want to move those to our new house in Huntington Beach. I can buy a new set. Lo and behold, the night before our move, he decided he wanted to take them. And the boys and I, we were so mad at him. We said, why are you doing that? He said, well, they are good washer and dryer. You will never find any new ones like that. And as we proceed to argue with him, he said, I think I'm having a headache. And him with glioblastoma, when he has a headache, I say, oh my gosh, I don't want to have to rush into the ER the night before we move. So, okay, you can have the washer and dryer. So we move, and the darn thing keeps breaking down again, and we fixed again. But 3 months ago, when Jessica and her family came and they kind of overused it broke down again. And it smells funny, so I knew something burned. And me being so ignorant with hardware, I don't know what burned, but I knew something was wrong. So I told him, I have to buy a new washer and dryer. And he goes, the hardware guru from Thousand Oaks. Why? You can fix it, it's the best machine in the world. And you know what? His mom, bless her heart, my mother-in-law, my dear mother-in-law, came to him and said, your wife, she's been through so much the past few months. She has enough headaches. You go out and buy a new set of washer and dryer and give it to her. And he goes, okay. So you know what? I ran with it. I went to Home Depot and I went looking for a new washer and dryer. And I was looking at all these new models. I was so impressed with all of them. They have sensors, they have low energy features and everything. I said, yes, this time I'm going to get my washer and dryer. And the sales guy from Home Depot came and asked me, what are you looking for? I said, well, my washer dryer broke and I would like to get a new set. Can you tell me whether there's some good options here? And he started telling me all that. And then he asked me, I'm curious, what do you have at home? And I said, I have a set of all Maytag washer and dryer. And he said, oh no, those are the best washer and dryer. What's wrong with them? He said, I think the bell broke. Then you just go to the appliance store and buy a new bell. Don't buy new ones. All these sensors, electronics, they're going to break down on you 10 years. Oh my gosh, and I don't know what happened to me at that time. I wasn't very smart, I guess. I say, okay, so which appliance store should we go to? And he took out a business card and said, where you live? Huntington Beach? Here it is, go. And actually went to the Huntington Beach appliance and asked for a bell. And they asked, for what machine? I say, Maytag. They asked, what model? I said, oh, I don't know. I said, well, go home and look up the model number and go come and get the bell. So I did, and I got the bell, and I actually got a handyman to replace it, and it worked again. And I went in the house, and I told Al, actually, I got the washer and dryer fixed. And he just sit there and he said, that's good. That's good. The hardware lady from Pasadena said they are best. I'm so glad we had to fix it and keep it. So anyway, but you know what's so endearing about him is that throughout all of our arguments in our marriage, he never said, I told you so. And I really love him for all his good and bad things. And that's one of the things that keep our marriage going is that he's always very calm and level-headed. He never argues, he never raises his voice, he never gets mad at me, although he always thinks he's right, but he never said it out loud. He just kept arguing until I couldn't take it anymore and I just had to give up. So Doan doesn't just have attachment to possession, you know, he has attachment to people. And being his wife, the recipient of a lot of his love and attachment. I guess we can't celebrate his life without celebrating our love story. And a lot of people ask me, how did we meet? I went to a high school reunion. I also went to Marie like him and his friend. I'm 4 years younger. So we had a high school reunion back in 1998 at Christmas time. So I went and his younger brother, Pham, also was in the same class, and he came and he actually brought Doan along with his two boys. And we didn't actually meet. I just saw him standing there looking really lost because it wasn't his class. I just thought, you know, I didn't think much. He just had these dorky glasses. And he was really skinny. And so after the reunion, I went back and one day I got an email from him, written in French, asking to join our high school, Marie 76, his class of 76, email forum. He said he was hoping that he could find some of his high school friends through our forum because we might have older brother and sister who would be in the same class with him. And he wrote that in French and sent it to three of us who were coordinators of the forum. And luckily, none of them, the other ones, remember French. And I did, and I wrote back to him in French. And after that, I used to write a lot of poems and send it to the forum just for fun. And he actually picked it up, and he wrote a lot of poetry back. He really enjoyed it, and back and forth, we actually teased each other in poetry. And one day he wrote this poem in Vietnamese, and he transposed the words. And he sent it out, and he said, whoever can solve this poem first, I would treat him or her to a nice course, 7-course beef dinner. So I guess he didn't expect that I live in Maryland. I was 3 hours ahead of him, of everyone. So I woke up, I saw the poem, and I just twisted the words around and I solved it. And I say, okay, now you owe me the 7-course beef dinner. So he said, okay, why don't you come to California and I treat you? I said, you come over here and treat me. So he said, okay. So he let it go. A couple months later, all of a sudden, he sent me an email. He said, look, the boys are with my ex this Valentine's weekend. Are you free? I come over and treat you to Bobemo? And I think he was just joking. But me being single and free, and I was in between boyfriends, so come on over. And at that time, he told me later, he said, sure. Now I have to go buy a plane ticket. So he bought the plane tickets and he said, oh sure, where am I going to stay? So I got him a hotel room near my house. And then I asked him, do you need to dance? He said, yes, I need them. I said, then bring your native shoes. So he brought them, and that weekend, it's Valentine's weekend, and it's also Vietnamese New Year weekend. So we went to a party, we danced a lot. Everyone, my friend, looked at us and they thought that we had been together for a long time. And they started asking him, when are you going to move to Maryland? And then the next day I took him to our family New Year gathering. And my brother, actually he's here, he looked at me and he said, when are you going to move to California? So that weekend would be, this one thing is I asked him, where do you want to go to spend time in D.C.? And I thought that he would want to go to somewhere very nice and romantic. And he thought for a while and he said, actually, they just opened the Holocaust Museum. I really want to see that. I said, oh, okay. You with the walking glasses, the Holocaust, what do I expect? Okay, so I took him to the Holocaust Museum, and then in between, we would go to the Washington Mall, and we would be sharing our life story, and we just grew closer and closer, and by the third day, he was getting ready to leave. We went to lunch, and he sat down and he said, at the rate this is going, I think I might fall in love with you. Can you tell me if I have any chance? Because if I don't, then I don't want to waste my time. So I say, oh, okay. I just barely know you, so why don't we just, keep communicating and see how it goes. He said, okay. So that's how it started. From then on, he went home, and probably Min would remember this, starting 6 o'clock over there, at 9 o'clock at night, at my time, he would start calling me, and we would talk until I fall asleep. Every single night, actually the whole night over the weekends until morning. And every 3 weeks he would fly to Maryland, and the other 3 weeks I would fly to California. And we had this long distance relationship, courtship for a year and a half. Actually 6 months after that. If you probably have heard already from what Adrian said, he he's very indecisive. And I picked that up very soon. So I know this guy, I know how to handle this guy. So 6 months into our courtship, I asked him one night on the phone, I say, do you want to get married? And he goes, now? And I say, no, not now, but we have to reserve the restaurant for 1 year. So we want to get a head start, so you want to get married or not? He said, okay. So we got married a year and a half after we started dating. I was dating in July of 2000, and I moved to California with Jessica. And my son had stayed back because he was finishing college. And when I was dating him, I was number one. And then when we moved in with the boys, I was quickly number 3. And I was really shocked. And one day when the 2 boys were fighting so bad, I just couldn't take it. I went out for a walk. And he ran after me. And he told me, don't worry, I will do my best to make this marriage work. Stay, don't go, don't leave. And he did make it work for 18 years. Our boys and our daughter grew up together. We became the best Brady Bunch. And I always say that I'm so blessed. I have given birth to 2 children, but now I have 4. And throughout this past few months, years, we struggle with Al's illness. The boys and I, we have become much, much closer. We can't get any closer than changing my dad's diaper together. So, I think Dao has so many different talents, skills, good traits, but best of all, he's the best husband, the best friend, the best companion that I've ever had. He's the love of my life. And saying goodbye to someone you love is always hard. But Dao has taught me a lot in the past 2 years. To be strong, to be accepting, never question, why me, why me? There are millions of other people who suffer more than us. And he's always appreciated the fact that he has me and his boys and the family and all the friends around. And sometimes, just to console ourselves, I would tell him, there's a war raging in Syria over there, and they just bombed a hospital. I'm just glad they're not bombing UCLA. And I can still find treatment for you. And he is so courageous in accepting everything that we try, although he knows that the outcome might not be what we wanted. The last 2 years, I've been running around like crazy, trying to find doctors for him, treatments for him. I would make plans as if my tireless effort would change fate, would change our fate. Dao, on the other hand, he fought very quietly. He just sat there I don't know what he thinks, but I know that he has a lot of faith in me to take good care of him. And towards the end, even up to 3 weeks ago when he had the seizure that took him to the hospital, I still had this grand plan that when he comes home, I would switch him to some other alternative treatment, no more chemo that make him sick, give him anything else that could prolong his life, just so I can have another month, another week with him. And, well, I guess it didn't work out. My plan failed. He didn't get better when we get home, and it broke my heart. It broke the boy's heart that we had to stop feeding him. I've spent my whole life, the past 18 years, feeding him, cooking for him, and I had to decide not to feed him. I even asked him, do you want me to feed you again, or do you want me to stop? And being his indecisive self, he couldn't decide. But so then I say, do you trust me to do the right thing for you? And he nodded his head right away. And I would go to church. I'm Catholic. I would run to church and say, please God, give me a sign that he would get better so I can feed him again. And then I came back, it just didn't get better. So we were able to stop or maybe relieve his pain the last 3 days. And I had prayed that if he had to go, let him go in peace and not stay much longer, because they say he was in a coma, but he could hear us. And I would hate for him to be in a coma for long and not being able to express himself. So as I listened to his breath, the last night, the nurse in hospice told me that we would have 2 days. So the last 2 nights, I would just try to listen to his breath and see how it changed and how close he is to leaving. And all night long, he was still breathing, even smaller at time. And in the morning of April 3rd, I woke up. It's around 8:15 or something. I came to him and I said, you know, I know you're waiting to wish me happy birthday. Today is my 60th birthday, and I know you remember. So thank you very much for waiting for me. But I'll be okay. You can go in peace. So he passed half an hour later. My heart wants to believe that he heard me. And that's our story. Thank you.
As many people have shared, Dao had a lot of very endearing traits and idiosyncrasies. The indecisiveness, the stubbornness. One that the boys and I have been talking about the past few days a lot is about how he always worded his desires in a way that would show that he didn't really want it. So for example, like, I wouldn't mind having X. It would never be, I want this. It would be, oh, if you guys want it, or I wouldn't mind, or if it's not too difficult. It was always a very somewhat annoying trait for us as his kids to figure out what it is exactly he wanted. In the last few months, as my mom shared, it was hard for him to eat and have an appetite for different types of foods. There's a lot of things she would cook that he just wouldn't be able to keep down, or the chemo would just kind of take away his appetite, and he felt like eating was sometimes like torture. But every now and then, he would wake up and say, I wouldn't mind a double In-N-Out burger today with a strawberry milkshake. Or, I wouldn't mind fish and chips today. And no matter where we were, we're on our phone like, okay, where are fish and chips? Where's an In-N-Out so that we can go? And because he wasn't hungry, and now he's hungry, and he's saying what he wants. In fact, the very last week, he said, I wouldn't mind, what was it, an open-faced pastrami sandwich. And I think my mom and brother had to find a pastrami sandwich and just take off the bread so it's open-faced so that he could have it. He wasn't always clear with what he wanted. So when he did share his desires, we took it very seriously. And he was very clear with how he wanted us to celebrate his dying. One of the gifts of a terrible disease like this is that you know that you're going to pass, and you have the opportunity to plan to some degree how your loved ones are going to be able to deal with your last days. And as my mom shared earlier, he typed out a very long and detailed PDF document telling us what the service might be like and how he wanted us to carry on without him. And I think that we're all looking for that type of closure, or even just a few more words from him. So to end today, my brother Julian put together a video with some of Dao's last moments in the past 2 years, and some words that he did have specifically for our family, but I'd like to think for all of us as well. So we'll end by watching this video of Dao.
See shots of Sunray or through the hospital providing high fructose corn syrup.
How do you feel today?
Yeah, I feel good. Yeah. The whole family is here, the kids are here, little boy is here, little grand-nephew is here, because he's here from Belgium. He's from the country of Rosalyn.
Yeah, really that's all now. When I look up at the sky, the hillside, look up at the trees, there were moments that I even wondered, like, why am I so happy? Felt alive. And I know that each of you has contributed to that. I'm lucky to have gone through this experience with a strong sense of serenity and peacefulness.
to say that?
Sweat, courage, discipline.
And I think that what would make me happiest is if I know that each of you have a same sense of peacefulness, that sense of acceptance. Enjoy this moment.
Yes, right now.
The sun shining. Once I'm gone, I know it will be difficult, but it's important. It's okay to let that emotion flow through you. I hope that you all will continue to give each other support. You will be each other's best ally. And until the inevitable moment. And fight.
So that ends our program, the scheduled program for today. Thank you again, everyone, for coming here. Again, we're so touched and encouraged to see each and every one of you here from all different parts of Dao's life to celebrate who he was. Afterwards, okay, Dao's mother would like to say something, and we will let her.
kính thưa quý vị, ngày hôm nay là một ngày rất hân hạnh cho gia đình chúng tôi. Tuy là Minh Đạo không còn nữa, nhưng mà chúng tôi thấy rằng Minh Đạo vẫn còn mãi mãi.
I'm going to try my best to translate. So she said, dear friends and family, today is, I feel very honored, even though Dao is no longer with us, but I feel that his spirit and inspiration will be with us for a long time.
Tôi cũng rất hãnh diện là Minh Đạo đã sống một cuộc sống trọn vẹn, biết hiến dâng, nhưng vẫn còn nhiều khuyết điểm cần học hỏi. Dẫu sao, người mẹ trông thấy con như vậy cũng rất là cảm kích và hãnh diện.
You know, Dao have lived a life of caring, compassion. He have been very giving. At the same time, I know that he still have many flaws. As a mom, I am very proud of what he's done, what he has achieved.
Ở tất cả tình cảm của quý vị dành cho Đạo ngày hôm nay, gia đình chúng tôi xin cảm tạ và luôn luôn ghi nhớ những tình cảm đó. Nam Mô A Di Đà Phật.
And all the love and support that you've been giving Dao throughout the years and today, Our family will always remember and will always treasure it. Namo Amito.
I wasn't sure how to say Namo.
Can't say it better than that. So please join us. We're going to have some light refreshments outside, and there's also a few stations that we've put together to help us celebrate Dao and his memory in an artistic way, because he was a very artistic person. And of course, the family and I will be around for you to visit with us. So please feel free to linger and continue to remember and share stories about Dao. Thank you.